Hello, everyone. My name is LJ Rich, TV broadcaster, music artist, and NASA Datanaut. And I'm delighted to be hosting Novo Nordisk's event today, which is How is Collaboration in Digital Health Shaping the Future of Diabetes Care? And we are excited to have a global audience today. So thank you for joining us for what promises to be a fascinating discussion. With me today is a formidable panel of experts and leaders in digital health. We have Camilla Sylvest, Executive Vice President at Novo Nordisk, Russ Johannesson, CEO at Glooko, Chad Patterson, Executive Vice President at Dexcom, and Marcel Gmünder, Global Head at Roche Diabetes Care. Hello, everybody. This next very quick half hour will be filled with insights from our speakers on digital health solutions and how they can benefit people living with diabetes. And we may even have time for a few questions at the end, and we'd love you to take part in the chat or ask questions during our time together. So let's kick off, shall we? Let's start with Camilla. Hello. Let's talk about why Novo Nordisk set out to collaborate with other players in the diabetes technology space.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So what has been really important for us is to try and understand where people with diabetes are coming from and what their needs are. And we know that they would really like to bother less with their disease. We know they would like to spend less time on their disease. So what we can do in partnership is really to make sure that we can combine the technological efforts that we have at Novo Nordisk with the partners that we work with. And when we do that, we can really meet people where they are. So when we are offering new technological solutions, we try to do it in a way where we make sure that people can use the technology they're already working with, because in that way we make sure that it gets easier for them. They spend less time worrying about their disease. So the partnerships that we have with Roche and with Dexcom and also with Glooko is, of course, made sure to support people in a way where they can optimize the care for themselves and with that also get better outcomes with diabetes. So that's really the intention, to make the space as big as possible for people in terms of their possibilities.
Brilliant, thank you, and a great way to start. So Marcel, why is this flexibility and choice so important for people with diabetes?
Yes, thank you very much. Diabetes as a chronic disease is a huge burden on people with diabetes and a constant challenge, 7 times 24. It is truly important to make sure that we as stakeholders in the treatment of this disease do everything to reduce the burden and bring relief to people everywhere and all the time. This means to make it easy, intuitive, and affordable to deal with the condition whenever and wherever people with diabetes need it. At Roche Diabetes Care, we keep people with diabetes and their needs at the center of everything we do. We are very much aware that no company, no professional alone is able to address all the structural, technological, and therapy challenges. Still, we see that from the point of view of a person with diabetes, there's only one point of view that needs to be addressed, and which is the relief. This is why all stakeholders need to work together to bring their individual solutions and contributions and make life easier for people with diabetes. We as Roche have developed the concept of integrated personalized diabetes management with our open ecosystem. We believe in the power of integrating and collaborating by connecting services, devices, and therapy for the benefit of people with diabetes, as well as other stakeholders that need to support, like namely healthcare professionals, caregivers, etc. They all need to have the information and insights available wherever and whenever they need them. This leads to improved outcomes, as Camilla has said, and better quality of life, which is truly important. This is what we aim for, no matter what device or therapy is. It must be the choice of the person with diabetes.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marcel. Now, many people use digital health tech already, like CGM, which most of you know is a continuous glucose monitor. So, Chad, let's bring you in here. Please tell us more about how integration of dosing data with systems like this can contribute to people managing their diabetes.
Yeah, first and foremost, thanks for having me. It can certainly make a huge difference. The idea of integration and interoperability is really at the core of everything we do. And adding to what Marcel said, simplifying and harmonizing experiences by bringing in multiple data feeds into one ecosystem. And I think most importantly, helping folks make sense of those data feeds is really critical. When customers correlate their glucose and understand the impacting behaviors in their life, whether it's sleep, meals, exercise, and medication, certainly like insulin, they can make calculated adjustments to improve their time in range. And folks will see almost immediately how small adjustments can really make a big difference in reducing fluctuations. Eating a slightly different meal or at a different time, and of course, more precisely adjusting their dose levels are really going to impact positively folks' outcomes and improve engagement over time. So I think it's absolutely going to make a huge difference to bring things under one roof, particularly dosing data.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chad. That's great. Okay, Russ, over to you. Thanks for your patience. Russ, you're going to tell us a little more about how a connected system works for the doctors and nurses supporting people with diabetes.
Sure. Thanks, LJ, for having me. Thanks, everybody else on the panel. As Chad and Marcel were just kind of articulating, having multiple connected data sources, whether it's dosing data, whether it's blood glucose readings, exercise logs, blood pressure, food logs, all flowing into a single platform that creates that single unified view of and for the person with diabetes. It makes it a much smarter and more user-friendly experience, both for the person with diabetes and for the care team that's taking care of them. So when the provider is working with a person with diabetes, it allows for that highly personalized discussion about the management of their condition. And as the data also allows for a more personalized and actionable insight and treatment plan development. So when the healthcare providers can see these custom insights, they can make faster and better treatment recommendations for people who might be at risk or just in the ongoing management of their condition.
Thank you, Russ. Yes, I think technology definitely does enable a more personalized approach to treatment. I track much of my own health data on my smartphone, which really comes in useful when interacting with medical professionals. Marcel, please can you give us an overview on where we are with diabetes technology? I guess like a state of the union.
Yes, there are many technologies and therapies available. And just as the disease is quite individual, so are the choices of people with diabetes. So ranging from glucose monitoring into other services like nutrition advice, therapy definitions, etc. And all of these choices need to come together. And while some patients might be skeptical about using the latest technology, others very much welcome it. And we must be able to respond to all those needs from all patients. We have also other stakeholders that play an important role in the journey, in the disease journey that our patients and people with diabetes have, namely providers, payers, and healthcare systems. And that is also a priority for us as Roche. We see great potential in those technologies and in the mix of various technologies, especially in digital health solutions to improve outcomes and the care situation that goes with it. Only recently, as part of our joint Changing Diabetes in Children program with our partners, Harvard, Novo Nordisk, and MIT, we have organized a hackathon to develop digital solutions to improve the care, in particular for the most vulnerable, children and adolescents living with diabetes in low and middle income countries. We see a huge potential in app-based solutions offering support by compiling and visualizing all relevant data at a glance, including, for instance, bolus recommendations and coaching services, but also with such solutions such as a meter-free glucose testing with the help of an app, especially for people with early and non-insulin dependent type 2 diabetes. It is important that we also think about people living in low and middle income countries, and this is where this is really focused. With this technology, we have the important data point of glucose levels in the digital space and can provide insights from that. We see a huge potential in that to broaden access.
Brilliant. Thank you. And if you've just tuned in, welcome to our LinkedIn Live on how collaboration in digital health is shaping the future of diabetes care. Please feel free to put any questions in the chat and we'll see if we can get to a few nearer to the end of our time together. Meanwhile, though, let's continue the conversation with Russ. And I presume, talking of conversations, the ones between a person with diabetes and their doctor can change with a more integrated picture together.
It sure can. It truly can be a transformation in the way, clinical practice happens. The conversation with the development of the technologies, with the connected care, with the data that gets shared, it's no longer based on guesswork, but it's really based on the data, and it becomes a much more effective conversation. The person with diabetes and their care team can discuss and they can learn from changes in their blood glucose levels and the interaction of their lifestyle and activity data. And they can course correct as needed in a much more sort of real-time, data-driven way. And additionally, people with diabetes can have the opportunity for more frequent and deeper engagement with their care teams when they can connect remotely outside of the clinic and in between regularly scheduled in-person visits. We saw a lot of this increase significantly with the pandemic over the last year and a half or so. And that can mean more frequent touch points when needed. And it creates these opportunities for identifying issues early before they turn into a more urgent situation. So the connection point and the enablement of that conversation between people with diabetes and their care teams has been a real transformation over the past few years in particular.
Great, thank you. Camilla, I know that partnering with other companies is very important to you, hence this collaboration with Roche, Glooko and Dexcom, for example. Please, can you tell us a little more about it?
Yeah, so Marcel already talked about how we work together on changing diabetes in children. And that's, of course, make sure that we can give access to many more vulnerable people. But I also have another example that actually inspired me and our company to work in partnership. So we have our professional cycling team, Team Novo Nordisk. And all of the riders, they have type 1 diabetes. So when I talk to them, they would often show me that they were testing out new technology. And of course, they are under extreme pressure to perform and ride really fast. And they also inspired us to understand that it didn't help them a whole lot if our smart pens from Novo Nordisk would only be connected to a few other technologies. But actually, if we were connected to many other technologies, it would open the space for them. So that inspiration was also important for us when we were making up our minds about what are the right partnerships. So we want to make it easy for a person living with diabetes to be able to get hold of their own data from smart pens, combine it with glucose measurement data, and from that they can have a really good dialogue with their physician. And that, of course, in the end will give them better time in range and much better health, hopefully. So that's really what we're aiming for, trying not to limit technologies, but open up for technologies. And that whole ecosystem is really what we try to pursue in our partnerships.
Oh, wow. Yes, I believe that human behavior ultimately drives technology and innovation. So I imagine that diabetes technology is particularly entwined with human behavior. So Chad, I'd love to know more about where you see the next steps in innovation.
Well, certainly innovation is not only the lifeblood of our company, but I'm sure it's the same is true for my fellow panelists who've all been pioneers in their respective spaces. And as much as I'm proud of what we've accomplished in the last 20 years, whether it's mobile compatibility, interoperability, and integration, certainly at the forefront of integrations into the greater digital health ecosystem, to name a few, I think the next 5 are going to be even more dynamic. And yes, of course, on the hardware side, there will always be constant innovation, but I believe that there's an opportunity to really think about innovation more broadly than we typically do, particularly in medical devices. Every interaction with our customers is an opportunity to be disruptive and provide innovation and be innovative. And like Russ said, I think the pandemic has certainly raised the bar in terms of those expectations that customers have. Bringing more insight and data into the mix can't come at the expense of introducing more complexity for patients, caregivers, payers, or providers. It's got to be simple, it's got to be digestible, and it's got to be actionable. And we absolutely have the opportunity to deliver this, improving outcomes and certainly opening access for millions more to technology than exists today. I'm excited.
I think you've got every reason to be. Thank you, Chad, and all of our panelists for opening this conversation. So it's time to go to questions from our fabulously international audience. I can see all of your comments coming in. So let's start with a question to both Marcel and Chad at the same time, because why not be efficient about it? So it's from Barbara. Hello, Barbara. This level of collaboration and partnership seems rather radical for the pharmaceutical industry. How has it been going? Let's start with you, Marcel, and then we'll go over to you next, Chad. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the question, Barbara. I think that's part of also a development that has taken place over the last few years and accelerated, as has been said, by the pandemic. We all see that we have to be part of the solution and bring our contributions together. I do think that especially for medical devices, and I would like to make there a little bit a difference to the pharmaceutical industry, but as Novo Nordisk has shown, there is also development on that side based on the thought and based on the belief that really bringing things together and being really inclusive as far as this is concerned can really add benefit. I do believe that we have all the patients in mind. We want truly to improve the situation for the patient, and that drives us to collaborate.
And thank you. Chad, would you like to jump in on that? Quality of life of patients and collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Marcel said, and I think in terms of how we've been successful, it's really been about establishing shared goals and shared opportunities, and understanding, identifying what each of us brings to a partnership to create more value for our customer base. And I think the examples that I see in our own world with Roche and Glooko and Novo are great examples of kind of that 1 + 1 = 3 opportunity that we have to improve quality of life for customers. So yeah, it's a really great opportunity to continue to collaborate.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Russ and Camilla, I'm going to come to you next. So what can other therapy areas learn from the progress made with these integrated digital health solutions for diabetes? And I'm going to start with you, Russ, and then come on to Camilla after that.
Sure. Well, I think they can learn a lot, because I think in the diabetes world, just as Chad and Marcel were just describing, and Camilla even kicked us off with, there is a lot of collaboration and understanding that the patient needs to be at the center of what we're talking about. And in particular, in the area of diabetes, where there is, for example, such high comorbidity with other chronic conditions, the ability to learn from not just the data, but the ability to interact and connect people with diabetes and their care teams, and to share in that and really connect the broader ecosystem. It's not just patient provider, it's device companies, it's pharmaceutical companies, it's researchers, it's payers, it's everybody kind of pulling in the same direction. And I think since diabetes has a lot of data and device connectivity in support of the condition, it naturally drives this conversation around things like not so much standards, but data interoperability. How can we all be on the same page in terms of sharing data effectively on behalf of the kind of patient-provider connection? And in a condition where there's a very high cognitive load, both on the patients having to manage 24/7 and the care teams, with a lot of complexity and how people can respond to different interventions. I think other conditions can learn a lot from that, and really the partnership, I think, that exists in a somewhat unique way across the diabetes ecosystem.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And Camilla, over to you, the same question.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Russ was just saying. I think a number of other serious chronic diseases can benefit quite a lot from digital health technology, the whole ecosystem and the partnerships that we are talking about now, whether it's in the diagnostic phase or whether it's in the actual treatment phase, or maybe even in the self-management phase, but providing the data, even not only retrospective data, but also potentially over time more prospective data. So trying to understand who is more at risk, who could benefit from a different type of treatment or adherence. So I think there's a lot to do here. And there's one additional thing that we haven't really cracked yet in diabetes, I would say. So Marcel was talking about low and middle income countries. There are a number of people who don't get access to care in those countries, and And there is still an opportunity to, with technology, to get more access to, and better access to care. And I was quite inspired what my colleagues here said about, how we might actually enable that also in the future. So hopefully digitalization in general can help us to just provide more care to people, especially in vulnerable settings, also in the future.
Wow, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Chad, I'm going to come to you next. What do you think future developments in blood glucose monitoring technology could look like? I do remember a few years ago there being a glucose monitoring contact lens, but what else is there that we can look forward to?
Well, like I said, I believe that we'll continue to get smaller, more accurate, more interoperable over time. That's certainly part of our future, but I think as we think about the customer experience, there's so much room for additional innovation around bringing data streams and insights and recommendations to our customers. I think the potential with software solutions and services are simply incredibly exciting, and I think it's going to be the future for where we go with this technology. And we're not going to go it alone, as we're here today. It's going to be about the collaboration and partnerships and bringing folks that are on the forefront of some of these technologies into the same ecosystem.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got a question from Gabriel. This is great. How can digital health improve the crucial issue of non-adherence in diabetes? Now, this is a question addressed to anybody on this panel because I suspect it's something that everybody wrestles with. So who'd like to go first?
I mean, I can take a crack at that. I firmly believe that, as this was asked, that compliance with a therapy regimen or with other things is truly important for outcome. And the more you can make it, the treatment intuitive, and the monitoring and the changes, adaptations to the treatment and the lifestyle intuitive and actually unnoticed by the patient, the more you will have compliance. And compliance drives outcomes. So I think this is really crucial to bring those things together.
Brilliant.
Well,
Thank you.
Maybe I can jump in on this one as well, if you don't mind. So I think it's part of the theme of what we've been talking about here is not just sort of the collaboration across the ecosystem of providers bringing it around, but it's also around the increase in personalization and understanding the person with diabetes and what it takes to motivate and drive that behavior change, because it is certainly not a one-size-fits-all. And with more data, we can drive a much more personalized approach, not just to what is clinically working for a patient, but behaviorally, what motivates them, what makes things, as Marcel was describing, easier and more intuitive to use, because not everyone wants to interact in the same way. And you can look across the technology and services spectrum in digital health, and it ranges everywhere from full-on chatbot-driven healthcare, which I'm not necessarily a proponent of, all the way to very high-touch, customized interventions and everything in between. And it's really understanding what motivates people and what gets them to behave in the way that is most comfortable for them to be able to manage their condition. But understanding more about the patient, the person with diabetes, is really at the center of all of that.
I can really see machine learning playing a part in this as well, looking at historical data and perhaps working out what future possibilities are there. And I know, Camilla, I'm sure you've got something to add on this subject of non-adherence, or in fact, adherence. Maybe we should be posing it as a positive.
Yeah.
How do you stick to everything?
Yeah, so I'm actually yet to meet a person with diabetes who have not been worried about, when is my blood sugar too high or when is it too low. So, of course, the point of our partnerships here is try to take that worry away from people. And we can see when we provide more data, it could be from smart pens or glucose measurements, and we combine that. We give the person with diabetes a better understanding of when is the blood sugar high and when is it low. And in a conversation with a physician, it's easier to understand what are some of the habits that this particular person has that actually makes it difficult to control the blood sugar on Tuesday afternoons or on Saturday mornings. And so it gets into this specific advice that the doctor and the person living with diabetes can then talk about, rather than sort of average data from clinical trials. So of course this makes it much more easy to then work with how to respond to that, and then hopefully with that getting better control. So there are good data that actually talks to some of this. So I think that's really the phenomenal part of the individual data generation.
Wow, my goodness, thank you so much. Well, we knew it would be quick. Can you believe that we are only 5 minutes left of our 30 minutes? So it's just enough time to thank our panelists. And I'm going to ask each of you to sum up with a quick sentence before closing. And Russ, you're going to be up first. What excites you the most about the future of digital health in diabetes care?
I think I'm most excited about the promise of finally being able to truly leverage just-in-time adaptive interventions and AI to deliver highly personalized, data-driven support for diabetes management, both in real time, but also driving to predictive interventions. Camilla referenced it before, understanding ahead of time when we're on a path to something that we want to avoid. I think that is ultimately the secret sauce that's going to power and connect the ecosystem, the pharmaceutical companies, device companies, the data, the payers, the researchers, the digital tools and services, everything that's going to improve health outcomes and quality of life for people living with diabetes.
Brilliant, thank you. And Chad, the same question to you. What excites you the most about the future of digital health in diabetes care?
I think simply the personal, actionable data that we can seamlessly integrate into our customers, all of our customers' lives, to improve engagement and thus improve outcomes and improve access around the world, has me more excited than ever about the future.
Wow, thank you. Very nicely put. And Marcel, it's your turn. I'm going to give you a different question. How would you like others in the healthcare space to think of new ways to partner with each other? Not sure if you can manage this in one sentence, but give it a go.
Yeah, I think the clue to it is to do what we have done collectively by putting themselves in the shoes of the respective person with the condition of the patient, to think about the journey and to see what elements does a patient need in order to improve, in order to control, and in order to have a good quality of life. And I think that's very generalistic, the approach. Think about how the patient feels, see what the patient experiences, and then think what the solutions could be, whether they are your own or somebody else's.
Thank you, Marcel. And finally, let's go over to you, Camilla, for some final thoughts.
Yeah, so very inspiring what my partners here just mentioned in terms of what we can hope for the future. And I really hope also that we can use technology to take the worry away from people living with diabetes, and not just from them, but also from their relatives. So if we with technology and in partnership can relieve them from having to think about their diabetes, but can think of something else in their lives, that would be, a great success factor for us, because then hopefully they would still get in better control, and they would worry less, and the same for their relatives. And that's really the journey that we are all on together in these partnerships to truly try to one day defeat diabetes and make people live, a much better life. So I look forward to continuous partnerships with everyone here on the call today.
Oh, thank you. Well, panelists, wow, thank you so much for all of your thoughts during today's very short but very interesting event. And audience, thank you. Thank you so much for your kind attention and some amazing questions and really very insightful comments too. We really appreciate them. So if you'd like to take things further, even, please keep the discussion going. We'd like to encourage this spirit of continuous innovation and discussion to try to make things better for everyone. So as our live show ends, please look to the comments below our video, and there'll be lots of resources to find out more about Novo Nordisk and its partners. But from me, thank you very, very much. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.